By my own order, I will slay the final boss. Well, there we are. First fail. Welcome back, classic crew. Does the Monster Hunter Wilds story pay off? When you cart to the final boss, it loses a little bit of impact. But I just finished the story of low rank, so if there's a lot more story in higher rank, I can't comment on that yet. But it feels like low rank has really tied up all loose ends and has delivered a narrative package. Now, was that package worth all the sacrifices the franchise had to do to get there? Some could argue yes, some could argue no. I'm reflecting on it, and my first impression is it was okay of a story. Honestly, I did not feel like it was a huge payoff. The final boss, I'm going to have a lot to say about it. I have a lot of thoughts. I really enjoyed it. Before this game, I think most people really pointed to Monster Hunter 4 as the example of what a good story was like. Monster Hunter World and Iceborne had some highs and lows, which I really liked. Monster Hunter Wilds felt more cohesive in every way. But two things I would say really held me back from saying this was an awesome story. One, I feel the franchise as a whole has lost its sense of fun, and not from a gameplay perspective, but from a narrative perspective. Like in Monster Hunter 4U, there's so many scenes of like, you know, your hunter comes to town in his underwear. There's a lot of kind of slapstick humor and looniness to the world, which has been there, I think, from every entry and is lacking a little bit here. Like we saw it at one point when you're, I think you're trying to get some meat back and there's a bunch of like palicos that are running with the meat. Like that scene, there's only really one of them. And then the Woodwoods kind of also suggested that there was a little bit of comedy, but they didn't really lean much into it. And outside of that, your side characters, you know, they're a lot more serious. So I feel that there's that lightheartedness missing. So that's one. And then the other one I think is a very polarizing opinion, which is Nata. I've seen people really enjoy this character and I've seen people really dislike this character. And I'm in the camp that I more dislike than like Nata. Like it's not an active hate. I really don't like him. I think I have a problem with the English voice actor, and a lot of people have said that when you play this in another language, it's not as bad, specifically Japanese. And one of the things I've realized I don't like about the performance of the actor is how much you hear him breathe. And you know, all of the scenes with Nata are so dramatic, but I realized this when rewatching the end. By the way, this whole journal is full of spoilers. At the end, after the credits, when you see that he's actually like going to be an apprentice hunter, all that, he's just kind of standing there smiling, and you can still hear him going like, like he's always breathing and shaking like he's in distress. And that makes sense for some of the scenes. You know, he's a traumatized child, that's okay. But it shouldn't be in every scene, and especially not the last one when it's all triumphant. So that I think is one of the things that gets on my nerves. And overall, he's just been, it doesn't feel like a big payoff to what he was supposed to deliver to the story. Now, thematically, I really enjoy what the story does. The whole story looks at a world and characters that are kind of trapped in their order, whether it is the monsters trapped to be what they are, what they were made to be, or for the keepers not having a choice of how to live their life like Nata had, or for the hunter to always be beholden to the guild. Like there's a consistent theme of breaking your chains and, you know, Arkveld having chains and all that. So thematically, good job, Capcom. Really tied it all up. The 2 points I brought up is what holds the story from really shining through and being like, I like that. In fact, you know, I joined the Monster Hunter World Iceborne train long after launch and long after everybody had kind of decided which camp they're in. And I remember when I started the game, people were all in agreement that the handler was cringe, the handler was annoying, which is something I never felt or believed in Monster Hunter World and Iceborne. And maybe I don't know what changed or how I perceived it differently. But I did see World and Iceborne as kind of an overarching thing. There was no breaks for me. And as a whole, I don't think handler was that bad. And in comparison, when I put that annoying character against Nata, like 100 times, I think the handler is less cringe, less annoying than Nata. I feel Nata is way more annoying than handler. So that's enough Nata hate. Let's break down the journey, and I'm going to finish off on the final boss because they did so many things I would have never expected them to do. I think base game bosses, I'm just saying this out here without thinking, I think for the most part, base game bosses are usually not that crazy or that impactful. Like Xeno'jiiva and World was really kind of a miss for me, but here they nailed it. Like this was a really good final boss. So last time, where was I? Last time I had just discovered the Keepers. I was fighting Rathalos. Before going any further, I realized I had customized my secret, but I had not named him. And in Rise, I had named my Palamute the Chat, because you know the chat carries me through the game. This time I didn't really want to do that. I feel that joke was already made, so we decided to name him the Editor. In case you don't know, I don't edit these journals. There is a special force and character behind all of this that brings the memes, and so now the Editor is the secret, because the secret, well, it's a secret here, but it's also the secret's always watching the hunter, which is appropriate because the Editor is always watching me play and has to cut up my performance, and usually only highlights the times I fail. Next up, I got a bunch of lore dump, actually understanding and learning what these milked up monsters mean, what the Guardians are, and it's a pretty big reveal that these are man-made monsters made in the old days, based on like real monster DNA. Whatever created them, it was some kind of human or Wyverian race, but they were basically building monsters to protect themselves with, and that is really dabbling in a topic I know that some hunters have brought up before, which is what was it? Was it like the all dragon weapon or something, like a man-made thing? Which I remember people were like, Capcom should never do that, and here they are tiptoeing the line of like, what if we do that a little bit, making monsters to fight other monsters? They didn't quite say why they were making monsters, what the threat was. But it is dabbling into some taboo territory here. Either way, so here we have these monsters that don't have any need for eating or reproducing. They're basically just weapons, and now we're going to destroy them. So from there, we get our first fight with Arkveld, which went well up until the point I got stuck in a corner. He started like whipping with combos, and I got carded. So that was also, at this point, my game was really struggling for some reason. Like everything was going garbage. The game wasn't running smoothly. My internet connection was choppy. So you're gonna probably see the footage here is choppy, and I actually had to stop streaming because the experience was just so bad. So my first fight with Arkveld was unfortunately ruined, in part because of the performance of the game. So from there, we headed off to the Keepers were like, oh, you should go see the Allharken in Sujo, another town, but you're gonna have to fight this big icy monster. And the Allharken will give you way more insights onto the history and things we might not know. So we're like, okay, off we go to a monster I had seen in the preview, which I was really looking to fight, which is Jin Dahaad. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I love my monsters big, and I love fighting them like this. And the first, like the way that they introduced Jin was epic, was amazing. Like this is how I like to introduce huge monsters. And he reminded me of, how do you pronounce it? Aknaktor. Just the way that his skeleton moves. And then at the start of the fight, I could see like he was putting ice on his body. So yeah, he felt very familiar, but still very different. And my first thought was, what would this thing look like if it was fighting a Velkhana, which is one of my favorite monsters? I would love to see Velkhana introduced in this game and actually seeing these two monsters face it off. I think it would be really, really cool. Another thing I really like that they did differently with this ice monster is it freezes you to the ground. So I think all other ice monsters, if my memory serves right, they always freeze you where you're like stuck in a snowball, and it like, maybe I've been in the old world too long, but here it actually freezes you to the ground, so you can't even move at all, which makes a huge difference to how impactful that is. So that made me a lot more cautious about being around him too long, especially being underneath its neck. At one point, the support cast was telling me like, oh, you gotta break the spikes on the back. I honestly don't understand what I was supposed to do. I was mounting it, I was flopping it over, and I was trying to attack the back. I was bouncing off the spikes, and I was really trying to break them. I'm not even sure if I did break them in the end. I asked Chad, and some people were like, yeah, I don't know either. And then the big thing about this fight, which is complete BS, but I'll allow it, is, you know, he goes into the center and he like sucks up all this cold air around him, which feels like Alatreon's attack in Iceborne, the Eschaton Judgment. I was like, oh no, this looks familiar, and I can feel the pressure of the world. I'm like, I can Superman dive this. I have to Superman dive. So I Superman dive too early. I'm like, no, not yet. And at one point, like the music just goes like cuts out. It just goes. I was like, okay, now Superman dive.
Oh, that's BS.
So I didn't have the right timing, and I carded to that, which I'm pretty sure many of you have as well. But overall, it was a really fun fight. Killed it and saw its armor. Can't say I love the male armor. The female armor in this case is better. I do like how it just sculpts. Like, I feel good armor should sculpt the hunter, whether you are male or female. So with that, we made it to Sujo, which is probably my favorite town in this game, and there's no like it's pretty obvious. There's so many callbacks to the old Monster Hunter world. I think any veteran hunter will love this town. I mean, the first thing you see when you enter the town is a Poogie, so right there it's like, hey, here's your favorite little bacon. It just had a cool vibe. Like the environments here, the scenery's beautiful, everyone's chill. We got our melding pot here, which is, again, to me, it just feels, melding feels more old world to me, even though it was in World and Iceborne. I've just associated that to the old world. We've got the large Wyverian here. I think his name is Tetsu-san, which reminds me anyways, of his immenseness from Monster Hunter 4U. So a lot of things in this town that just feels old world. And honestly, this was tapping into that charm I was saying was missing from a lot of Monster Hunter games. So I was so glad to see that at least they sprinkled it in here. And I want them to lean more into that. So for the next Monster Hunter title, I vote we go back to the old world in the familiar territory, but we fight new monsters because, I don't know, stuff happens. Also, there's another little scene here where I think it's the first time we see Olivia with her armor off. And Olivia has really been growing on to me for many reasons. Just her character is cool, like the way she's using her hammer is cool, the way her presence is cool. Everything about her just screams like cool. And then there's a scene where you learn that like underneath the armor, actually from the front, I was like, ooh, Olivia without armor is looking pretty good. And then we see from the back, it's like a full back Olivia. I was like, so anyway, maybe I'm oversharing at that point. So we basically talk to the what's her name again? And she basically just goes like, nature, it is beautiful. Look at this world. And she doesn't really tell us anything new, but I think she makes us reflect on what we've learned from the Keepers and how there are man-made monsters. And it's like, okay, what are you going to do with this information now? So we go back to the Keepers. I do feel like this game narratively kind of ping-pongs you around a lot of like, go to this town, go to this town, go to this town. Could have been woven a little bit smoother, but anyway. So we go back and here we learn about the dust that can disintegrate the wyvern milk when it's like hardened, which comes in as a plot point later. And then we're like, oh, there's a sentry if you go down into the bowels of this area. And this is one of my favorite parts of the game because I got completely surprised. And this is another like strong point of why games and publishers should not be announcing so much around marketing. The joy of discovering something and being surprised in a game, we're losing that as gamers because so many publishers and developers just keep showing us so much before we get to experience it ourselves. And of course, I'm referring to the Ebony Odogaron, which is the next fight. And I did not see this coming at all. I had no idea he was in this game. And I was just like, oh my God, like he wasn't even on my radar. So I was caught completely unaware, pleasantly surprised because not Ebony Odogaron. Odogaron left such a good impression on me in World the first time I met him. I was like, oh, let's go. And I don't know if it's probably because I'm a better player now, but he was a bit of a disappointing fight because when I met him in World, he was so scary, so intimidating. Plus there was that amazing background music that was just pounding in my ears. But with Ebony, it just was like, okay, he's fast. Like I just did all of my moves. I was trying to land more of my offset moves. And here's another thing. I commented a lot about the difficulty last week of the game. I don't want to open that up just yet, but I am realizing I have not been leaning into a lot of techniques that makes the fight easier. And with the switch axe specifically, I've learned that if you actually try to do the offsets where you like swing your axe upward and make the monster like recoil, it does create a lot of openings. And if you really lean into all the wounds and just like hammering the wounds a lot, it just does so much damage. So it does make the fights a little bit more trivial that way. Glad to see the Odogaron armor back. I think I prefer the master rank armor, but it's not in this game yet. So really looking forward to seeing when that armor is going to drop. And to go from this fight directly to another fight, which I don't think I knew I definitely did not know that there was a second octopus in this game. So to have a back-to-back surprise, like I was just grinning. So yeah, right after Ebony Odogaron, we go to Shu Wu, which is like this small octopus which slides in cracks and has like pretty much swords for his tentacles instead of having big floppy tentacles. He's got like sharp pointy tentacles, which hurts a lot more. A fun fight, not as fun as the fire tentacle, but I do love its armor a lot more. I shouldn't say love, I should say like. It's based on like kind of the classical assassin look, and I just think, you know, it's a nice armor set. That's all I have to say about it. The fight itself was not quite as fun as slaying the Apex, where the tentacles are flying, and more intense with fire. It just felt less impactful than that, but happy to see that we're getting not one, but two tentacle monsters in this game. Finally, we made our way down to the flagship fight with Arkveld, and again, just the narrative elements before this of Nata feeling like Arkveld and him have this like symbiotic bond of feeling of we're just trying to break free. Like he felt for Arkveld, which it's fair, but like Arkveld is clearly on a rampage at this point. He's just eating and feeding off anything he can. And he's like, no, don't slay it, because I understand it. And it's like, I'm sorry, Nata, but we're going to put this monster down. You're with a hunter. What do? We hunt monsters. So again, he was just a little annoying at this part. It was just like, just get the kid out of here so I can do my thing. The fight was fun. I feel I struggled more with past flagships, or at least they were more iconic, like Nergigante and, oh my goodness, what's the name from the Rise flagship? I think I called him Marshmallow too many times and I pushed the real name out of my brain. Those monsters just left a bigger impact. I feel Arkveld is missing some moves, and maybe they're going to be introduced in higher rank, but like a monster with chains should be a lot more dangerous than what Arkveld is. Ultimately, he's always doing, like he's either pushing his front paw to the side with a swipe, or he's bringing the chains down in a vertical, which is super easy to dodge with the switch axe. So overall, I didn't feel that much tension with Arkveld. I did feel the music was saying a lot more, and I you know, there's some channels out there that break down like the music and what it means. I really want to see them do that, because the music has like elements of tragic, like it sounds tragic, and then there's part where it sounds triumphant, and then it gets alien, like you get some alien sounds in there. And I heard that there's some like weird like screams that were made by people, like actual humans screaming in the song or making sounds of like wailing, and it's because it's like a man-made monster and it's a callback to that. So the music left a way bigger impression on me than the fight did. And also, unfortunately, I don't like the armor set of Arkveld. It's just so much. It's very Viking inspired. I feel like it's a very bulky armor set, which that's just not my style. So I was not a fan of the Arkveld armor. I was not a big fan of the weapons either, but later on you'll see I did end up with the Arkveld switch axe just because I was looking for a quick solution to get a stronger switch axe, so I did go with that in the end. So we finished that, and then we learned about the dragon torch is infected with a monster. There's a monster in there just feeding off everything, and the dragon torch is what sustains the ecosystem. It's what gives wyvern milk to the environment. So now it's like, what do? Do we ignore it and let the monster keep festering? Do we destroy it and completely nuke the whole environment? And there's this whole discussion in the tent and about all the characters arguing of the for and the against. And it feels like this was supposed to be a really tense scene. It reminded me a lot of the Lord of the Rings council when they're all arguing about like, what do we do with the ring? And then of course Frodo was like, I'll do it. I'll take the ring to Mordor. And like, that was so impactful. That felt great. But in this one, we got Nata, who's like, he steps up and he's like, we should just do it. And like, you know, it was like when you compare those two scenes side by side, the Lord of the Rings one worked, this one did not, because it just doesn't make sense that why should, like, I think Nata is supposed to be a 12, 13-year-old. Why should a child decide the fate of an entire world simply because he holds a stone that his dad gave him? And like, you have all the adults in the room arguing with valid reasons of like the outsiders being, should we be the ones making the decisions, or should we let those that our decisions will impact make the decisions? And then it's like, forget it, forget this discussion, let's just put on the kid. What does the kid think? You know, he looks at his rock and he's like, I will, I don't know what he was, yeah, I think he was gonna destroy the whole ecosystem in the end. So maybe don't listen to a kid. Again, this is coming from a place where I just don't like Nata. So we go to Zoshia, the final boss, with our decision to either nuke it or whatever. We'll go see what we're gonna do. And this has to be the most badass line I've ever heard delivered in a Monster Hunter game, which isn't saying much because we never had lines in the back. But my favorite line of the hunter, like everybody arguing, like, what do we do? There's no other choice. Do we destroy it? Do we leave it alone? And the hunter just stepping up and being like, by my own order, I will slay Zoshia. And it was such a cool way to start the fight. It's such a shame that I triple carded on him the first time. But here we are. I don't even know why I triple carded. Well, the first one was BS because during the fight, when he starts terraforming the arena and there's fire everywhere, there's rocks that go up that seems very similar to one of the fights where, you know, the game essentially taught you hide behind the rocks. And so I hid behind the rock only for the whole thing to collapse in front of me. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna die, aren't I? And then my health just melted as I was covered in fire. I later learned that you can just outrun it and you have to run in the opposite direction, but that is how the game trolls you, because it teaches you a mechanic and then changes the rules on you without a warning. The first impression was a really cool, like, I love the skeletal aspect of this. It felt very alien and very like final boss material. I love how it was growing like the spikes on its side and you could break it. It felt very much like the Nergigante fight. And so I was having fun like destroying that. But it also created a lot of confusion with my chat, because my chat was telling me to shoot the rocks, which is a very important element to this fight, and I did not understand what they were saying, because I was shooting the thing on the monster, the wings, which to my understanding was made of wyvern milk, and people were like, the rock, I'm like, what rock? And I was like looking up for rocks. They're like, no, the wyvern milk, and they were trying to refer to these rock formations made of wyvern milk coming out of the ground. But at no point in my history of playing this franchise have I ever needed to shoot a rock on the ground. And so I was constantly looking up to like, what rock am I shooting? Am I shooting like the thing that's growing on the monster? I'm already doing that. They're like, the rock's on the ground. I was like, what does this do? And I was like hitting it with my switch X. I'm like, this is doing nothing. It's not until I came back for round 2 after my triple cart that I accidentally saw the rocks explode. And I think it was because I accidentally shot it with my slinger. It was a fire thing. I was like, wait a minute, I can shoot these and they explode? And so I tried it again on one that was near Arkveld, and with near Zoshia, and I saw the destruction everywhere and like all this damage on it. I was like, oh my god, this is like hacks. And the whole chat was like, oh my god, he finally got it. Like, they were trying for 20 minutes to explain to me what to do, and I was just not understanding. Like under the heat of the fight, trying to read the comments, trying to read the monster, and just trying to do something that was not intuitive to me prior to that point. Once you actually know to do that, it's such a walk in the park. It's kind of ridiculous. Otherwise, prior to learning that, I had learned that if you just stay behind the front legs and you attack the head and the front legs from behind, you're usually pretty safe from most attacks, and it's pretty effective at dealing damage. Like I think he takes the most damage on his front legs and head anyways. Really love how it starts morphing. The more you attack it, it like breaks up, and like you see this like dark head come out, and then eventually the dark wings, and it's like slowly becoming like almost like a black dragon. People were like, does it remind you of anything I was fighting? I'm like, it does, but I don't want to say it because I felt stupid saying it. But eventually I was like, this really reminds me of Fatalis, and people were like, and I was like, but I can't explain why. Like, it doesn't look like Fatalis, but it feels like Fatalis. And so I've looked a little bit into the lore. I haven't gone deep, but from what I'm learning is there's a lot of theories that this is like the amalgamation of all the black dragons. Like the old civilization, probably like the lore implications of this could mean that the old civilization gathered black dragon cells like Fatalis' cells to make their own, which is crazy. And then this monster, whatever it did, it destroyed the civilization at the time and then went into the cocoon. So there's a lot of impact of what this means for a lore, and there's so much left to speculation. It's really fascinating. Like, I did not feel this at all in all of the other games about the final monster, but this one, like, it just changes the nature of the world that we're exploring. So it is really interesting. And as in terms of the fight goes, it was really fun until I learned about shooting the rocks. Then it just pretty much melted the monster, and then the attacks were pretty easy to dodge now that I knew what they were. So overall, very satisfying fight. The only one that I triple carded to with reason. So at least I think I had a good reason for it. Lastly, my complaint about Zoshia is, why is there no armor or weaponry? That is such a shame. And the fact that you can't fight it again. I would bet money this fight's going to come back. It's going to be an event quest or something. I think in a title update, they're going to bring this back somehow. I don't know if they're going to put in armor and weapons. I really hope they do. But at minimum, I do think they're going to bring back the fight. So that's where I'm at. Now we rolled credits. I'm ready to enter high rank. I think I have maybe another journal or two to cover high rank. I know that there's quite a few monsters I haven't fought that I've seen in the preview, like the Yankutku. This has already been quite a long journal, but please let me know, what do you think of the story? Are you for? Do you think they did good things? Let's be honest here. You can criticize something and still like it, or you can say this is exactly what you wanted. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So I'll see you either on the next stream or on the next journal as we journey into Wild's high rank. And until next time, keep it classy.